a variation of the previous question which we had discussed, where we were finding the majority element in the array. We were defining majority element as an element which is occurring more than n by 2 times in the array. The present question is a variation of that, where we need to find the elements which are occurring more than n by 3 times in the array, where n is the size of the array. So if we consider this array, so we can see the size of the array is 3, 3, 6, 9 and 10. So the size of the array is 10. So anything which occurs more than 3 times qualifies as a majority element, and we can see that we have 2 occurring 4 times and 3 occurring 5 times. So if we consider the present question, we should get 2 and 3 as the output. So here also we can do all the previous discussed ways of traversing the elements in the array and getting the majority element. That too would be taking the big of n square, and then the another solution was of using a hash map. I will not consider or discuss them over here. If you want, you can check the previous video. We'll just directly jump into the Moore's voting algorithm. So the idea is still the same. I'll explain the logic once I have written the code. So let me first write the code. Let me copy the values from here. So if the number which we are checking right now is equal to the first number which we have, right? So what we do is we increase the count of that first number, right? If the number which we are iterating right now in the array is equal to the second number, we increase the count of the second count variable, right? So this should be null set, because either this or this, right? And what else? We also check, right, if, right, anywhere count 1 is coming to be equal to 0, right? What should we do? So in that case, if the value of count 1 is changing, right, so the previous elements have changed, we need another candidate, right? So we will change the number 1 to be this number which we are iterating as of now. We call that as number 1, and we then restart making the count 1 as 1. So this would also be the case for the second counter variable. Whenever we are having a case where count 2 comes to be 0, we need to update the second number and restart by making count2 be equal to 1. And what would be the last scenario that would come in else? That would be basically all the cases where neither of the previous conditions, that is the number which we are iterating, is neither equal to the number 1 which we had assumed, nor equal to number 2 which we have assumed, and also the count of 1 and count 2 is yet to be like reduced to 0. So it could be in between, right? So if we consider this flow over here, we have 1 initially. We are just checking the number 1 whether that is equal to -1, so that is not happening, right? So count 1 is initially 0, so what we make the number 1 as 1, right? And then count 1 we have increased it as 1. Next loop we come to 2, so the number which we have is obviously not equal to number 1, right? So it will fall in the else loop and we decrease the count, right? Next time it comes with 2, so we have a number which is new, right? And we have count 1 to be equal to 0, so we increase the count as 1 of count 1 and number as 2. Next we go to 3, then it will basically decrease that. Then we go to 2, again it will decrease the count of 3, then it will go to 3 again, and it will keep on increasing the value of 3 till it reaches 2. So the moment it reaches 2, we will have a second variable which is going to be saved in number 2. How is that going to happen? See, in the case when we have 3 being increasing, the count 1 would not be 0. Then we have a else if of count 2 check, right? It will not fall here, so it will go to the next loop. And since count 2 is yet to be like managed, it will first go and check why and for which element is this count 2 equal to 0. So obviously it would be for 2, because this is the new element until which count 1 has been increased, right? So we don't have any element in between to decrease count 1, so count 1 is not 0, it comes here, count 2 is 0, and then we have number 2 as a new number and we increase the count 2. Next we have 3, so again count 1 would be increased. How? See, when we come with 3, we are first checking for number 1, right? So count 1 increases, and then what is finally left is that we just need to iterate through the numbers which we have saved, right? And just check what is the count. So if we have a list, we just need to go through it and then save the number and check whether that number is having a count more than n by 3. So for that, what we will do is, outside the for loop, to change the return type over here. Right, so first let me run this to see if it's running. Yeah, we got 3 and 2. So now coming to the point, like how is this actually working? So in the array, as I was saying, we have 1, then double 2, 3, then 2, then triple 3, then 2 and 3. So clearly we can see the majority elements which we need is 3 and 2, because 3 is occurring 3 plus 1 4 and 5 times, right? And 2 is occurring 2 4 times, and the array size is 3 3 6 3 9 and 10. So basically we need any of the element which is going to have like occurrence more than this many times, right? So clearly 2 and 3 qualifies it. Coming to the logic or the algorithm which we are using over here, so what we are doing is, first we are picking the first element, right? And we check whether the number which we are searching is traversing is equal to the first number which we have selected. So initially we have marked all number 1 and number 2 as -1, so that would not happen. Only it will come in this if else condition. Then we are declaring number 1 as 1, and the count we increase. Next time we get into 2. Now this number is obviously not equal to the number which we have selected, right? And it's also not equal to the number 2 which we have selected. So what will happen? It will come to count 2. So it will go and update my number 2 as 2 and count 2 as 1. Now we again get 2. So then what we do? We have a number which is equal to the number which we have earlier selected. So we increase the count, right? Now we go to 3. So 3 is not going to fall in any of this case. So we just decrease the count of 2 and count 1 and count 2. So count 1 becomes 0 and count 2 becomes 1, right? So what do we have now? We have count 1 as 0. Now we have again 2 with us. So we go with number as 2. That obviously is not equal to the number 1 which we have selected. And then we go for number 2. So number 2 is actually equals to the number 2 which we have selected. So the count 2 increases. Then we have 3. Now 3 is obviously not equal to the number 1 which we have selected, but the count 1 is 0, right? It falls in this if else condition. Now the number 1 is updated as 3 and count as 1, and going forward it will be increased by further 2 times. So count 1 will become 3. Now again count 2 would increase, the number 2 would increase the count of number 2, count 2, right? And then 3 would also increase the count of count 1. So finally we will have numbers 1 and number 2 as 3 and 2. Then what we are doing is we are just traversing the whole array to check whether they qualify for the condition, like they are greater than n by 3, right? So this first logic is basically giving me the majority 2 elements, and to check whether they are like occurring more than n by 3 times, we just have this extra logic here. So yeah, do like and subscribe, and if you find the video interesting, do subscribe the channel, and do let me know if you want any specific explanation for this logic, and you can also suggest what next topic you want me to cover. So thank you.